Imagine someone telling you that your pain, your tears, your sleepless nights, and your silent struggles are not signs of weakness, but proof that Allah has chosen you for something greater. Most people think that when life becomes difficult, it's because something is wrong. But what if the opposite is true? What if your struggles are not a curse, but a calling? What if your setbacks are actually the path to your elevation in the sight of Allah? This is not just another lecture. This is a reality check, a wake-up call for every believer who has asked, why me? If you've ever felt tested, abandoned, or overwhelmed, then stay with me till the end. Because today, you will discover that the very things breaking you might be the things raising your rank in Jannah. Now let's begin the lecture. My brothers and sisters, one of the greatest misunderstandings we face today is believing that tests mean Allah is displeased with us. But the Prophet Muhammad made it clear, one Allah loves a servant, He tests them. This is not a curse, this is an honor. A test is a divine selection, an opportunity to rise. Think of the lives of the prophets. If difficulty meant rejection from Allah, then why did Prophet Ibrahim face the fire? Why did Prophet Yusuf end up in a well and a prison? Why did Prophet Ayyub lose his health, children and wealth? And why did the most beloved of all, Prophet Muhammad experience loss, hunger, persecution and pain? Because tests are not signs of distance from Allah, they are signs of nearness. When Allah wants to purify you, He removes the dust of sin through patience. When He wants to elevate you, He gives you a mountain to climb. When He wants to draw you closer, He takes away what was distracting you. Some blessings come wrapped in hardship. Sometimes Allah doesn't change your situation immediately, because He first wants to change you through that situation. You might be thinking, but it hurts. I'm tired. How long will this last? Allah answers you in the Quran. Allah does not burden a soul more than it can bear. This means if the test is big, it's because your strength in Allah's eyes is greater than you think. Every hardship has a limit. Every storm has an end. Even the longest night ends with fajr. Now ask yourself, when life squeezes you, what comes out? Do you complain or do you call on Him? Do you give up or do you grow stronger? A believer's heart doesn't break to destroy them. It breaks to open space for Allah. Your tears are seen. Your silence is heard. Your patience is recorded. Your pain is not pointless. Allah is not ignoring you. He is preparing you. Some of your biggest tests are protecting you from bigger problems you can't see. Some delays are saving you. Some losses are guiding you. And some heartbreaks are redirecting you to something far better. So stay strong. Your test is not a punishment. It's a pathway. Your dua is not ignored. It is being timed perfectly. Your pain is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. And remember this, the same Lord who tested you is the one who promised. Indeed, with hardship comes ease, not after hardship with it. Hold on, stay patient, trust Allah. Because when He loves you, He tests you, but He also carries you through it. When a person begins to understand that the trials they endure are not punishments but signs of divine selection, their entire outlook on life changes. Many people assume that ease is a sign of Allah's favor and hardship is a sign of His anger. Yet the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad clearly reverse this misconception. The hadith states that when Allah loves a servant, He tests them. This means that a believer's struggles are not signs of rejection but signs of purification, attention and elevation. The test becomes a means through which Allah cleanses the heart, strengthens the soul, and prepares the believer for something greater than they could have achieved without that hardship. When someone is tested with financial difficulty, emotional pain, illness, family conflict, or internal struggles, they often feel as though they have been left alone. But in reality, a test is a direct indication that Allah is involving Himself in their life, reshaping their path and guiding their heart in a way that only He understands. The heart may not comprehend the wisdom behind the pain, but the soul recognizes that something deep is being transformed. Think of a diamond. Before it can shine, it must be subjected to intense pressure. Gold must be heated in fire before its impurities can be separated. Soil must be turned and broken before a seed can grow. If these materials could speak, they would cry out during the process. But the one who shapes them knows exactly what they are becoming. In the same way, when a believer is tested, it is because Allah sees something within them that must be molded, refined and polished. Without the test, that inner potential would remain hidden and inactive. Allah does not test empty hearts. He tests hearts that have the capacity to rise. When a believer realizes this, they stop viewing their suffering as abandonment and begin seeing it as selection. They understand that Allah wants to elevate their status rather than leave them in mediocrity. The prophets, the most beloved of Allah's creation, were tested more than anyone else. If tests were signs of divine anger, then the prophets would have lived the easiest lives. But look at Prophet Muhammad who lost both parents at a young age, buried his children, faced starvation, persecution, and physical harm from those who rejected his message. Look at Prophet Ibrahim who was thrown into a fire, commanded to leave his family in a barren desert, and asked to sacrifice his beloved son. Look at Prophet Yusuf who was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned unjustly. Their hardships were not rejections, but pathways to closeness with Allah. These stories are not merely historical accounts, they are lessons for every believer who questions why they are suffering. Allah is showing us that the road to His love is often paved with challenges, and only those who endure with trust are granted the reward that comes with it. A person may think that they are too weak for what they are going through, but Allah says He does not burden a soul with more than it can bear. This means that your test was measured specifically for you. It is not random, it is not excessive, and it is not meaningless. It is a personalized journey designed by the one who knows you better than you know yourself. The pain you feel is not an indication that you are failing. It is a reminder that you are in the middle of a divine process. At times, Allah removes certain comforts from your life not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants to detach you from what is holding you back. He may close one door to prevent you from walking into something harmful and keep you in a state of uncertainty so that you turn to Him fully. The test is an invitation to realign your heart with your Creator and to rely on Him rather than the world. When a believer responds to difficulty with patience, hope, and dua, the test becomes a means of purification. Sins are erased, ranks are elevated, and the heart is softened in ways that ease could never achieve. Sometimes Allah withholds what you want in order to give you what you need. Sometimes He puts you through loss in order to fill you with something better. Sometimes He breaks your attachment to people so that your attachment to Him can grow. And through every tear, every sleepless night, and every silent moment of pain, Allah is closer than you think. He hears the unspoken words, He sees the hidden struggle, and He rewards every breath of patience even if no one else knows what you are going through. Understanding that tests are signs of Allah's love does not mean that pain disappears, but it changes the meaning of the pain. It turns frustration into surrender, fear into trust, and sadness into hope. The believer learns to say, Allah is testing me, then He is preparing me. If He is testing me, then He has not forgotten me. If He is testing me, then there is something in me that He wants to purify and elevate. This mindset transforms the test from a burden into a bridge. Even when the situation remains difficult, the heart finds strength in knowing that the test itself is proof of a divine connection. Those who are not loved are left to wander without guidance, but those whom Allah loves are guided through trials into His mercy. When the believer finally meets Allah on the day of judgment, they will see that every hardship they faced was not a punishment, but one of the greatest gifts they were ever given. When a person reflects on the lives of the prophets, they begin to understand that hardship is not something to be ashamed of or afraid of. It is a consistent pattern in the story of every individual whom Allah chose for greatness. If ease and comfort were the criteria of Allah's love, the prophets would have lived lives without pain, loss, or difficulty. Yet the opposite is true. Those closest to Allah endured hardship not because they were weak or unworthy, but because they were strong enough to carry the weight of divine responsibility. Their struggles became lessons for generations, and their stories serve as comfort to every believer who feels overwhelmed by trials. When someone says they are going through too much, they should remember that no one was tested more than the ones Allah loved the most. The test is not a wall, it is a doorway to a higher rank. Consider Prophet Ibrahim, A.S., who was young when he stood up alone against a nation drowning in idolatry. He was mocked, rejected by his people, and thrown into a blazing fire. From the outside, it looked like complete destruction. But Allah turned the fire into peace and safety. This was not just a miracle for him, it was a sign that when Allah is with you, no hardship can harm you. Then came the test of leaving his wife Hajar and infant son Ismail in an empty desert with no food, water, or shelter. Many would collapse under such a comment, but he trusted the wisdom of Allah without questioning. From that moment of hardship came the spring of Zamzam and the foundation of Makkah. What appeared to be loneliness turned into legacy. Think about Prophet Yusuf S., betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a well as a child, separated from his loving father, and sold into slavery in a foreign land. Then, after being wrongfully accused, he spent years in prison despite his innocence. To the world, it seemed like misfortune after misfortune. But every part of that journey was a step towards something greater. Had he not been taken to Egypt, had he not been imprisoned, he would not have been placed in a position of authority later. The pain he endured positioned him exactly where Allah wanted him to be. What others planned as harm, Allah used as elevation. Look at Prophet Ayyub A.S., known for his immense patience. He was once blessed with health, wealth, and children, yet Allah tested him by taking all of it away. His body was afflicted with illness, his wealth disappeared, and his children passed away. People abandoned him, but his faith never wavered. He did not complain about the decree of Allah, nor did he lose hope. Instead, he cried out to his Lord with humility, acknowledging his weakness and Allah's mercy. Through his patience, he not only regained what he lost, but was given even more. His story teaches every believer that no test lasts forever and no pain is unnoticed. Then there is Prophet Musa A.S. As a child, he was placed in a basket and set afloat on a river to escape death. He grew up in the house of the very tyrant who sought to kill him. Later, he fled to another land after being involved in an incident that forced him into exile. Years passed before he returned, and even then, his mission was to confront one of the most powerful and oppressive rulers in history. Each hardship prepared him to stand strong, speak truth to power, and lead a nation to freedom. Above all, reflect on the life of Prophet Muhammad A. He lost his father before birth, his mother at a young age, and his grandfather soon after. He buried his children with his own hands. He was mocked, boycotted, attacked, and forced to leave his home. His companions were tortured, his people starved, and his message resisted for years. If suffering was a sign of Allah's anger, then why would the most beloved to Allah face the greatest trials? The answer is simply because hardship refines the heart, shapes character, and brings the soul closer to its creator. When a believer looks at these stories, they stop asking, "Why am I being tested?" and begin asking, "What is Allah teaching me through this?" The prophets did not pass through ease to reach their status. They passed through struggle. Their pain was not a barrier but a bridge. Allah tested their resilience, trust, and patience so that their stories could become guiding lights for others. When you feel overwhelmed, remember that you are part of a legacy of believers who were strengthened through hardship. You are not the first to cry, to fear, or to feel lost, and you will not be the last to be rescued, healed, and elevated. A person's reaction to difficulty determines the outcome of their test. The prophets did not become great because they avoided pain. They became great because they trusted Allah through it. Their lives prove that tests are not signs of rejection but signs of selection. Allah chooses the hearts He wants to purify, the souls He wants to elevate, and the people He wants to draw closer to Him. When you realize this, your hardship no longer feels like a punishment. It becomes a reminder that you are not invisible to your Lord. He sees your tears, hears your prayers, and counts every moment of patience. The test might break you on the outside, but it builds you on the inside. And when Allah loves someone, He prepares them, sometimes through ease, but often through hardship, so that they may rise to a rank they could never reach otherwise. Faith is often spoken about as something that lives in the heart, but it is only through tests that its true strength is revealed and developed. Just like a muscle cannot grow without resistance, a man cannot deepen without challenge. If a person lived a life of constant comfort, with no emotional, physical, or spiritual trials, their faith would remain theoretical. They might believe in Allah, but they would not experience the transformative power of tawakkul, sabr, and resilience. It is the storms of life that force the believer to hold on to Allah more firmly, without difficulty. A believer might remain content on the surface, but hardship pushes them to look inward, to reflect, to repent, and to rise. Faith that is never tested remains unproven, and faith that is unproven remains weak. When someone goes through a hardship, they begin to understand parts of themselves they never realized existed. Trials expose both weaknesses and strengths. A person might think they are patient until they are tested with delay. They might think they trust Allah until they are placed in a situation where nothing seems certain. They might think they are grateful until they lose something they took for granted. Through the test, they discover their flaws, but more importantly, they discover the door that leads them back to Allah. A heart that is shaken often becomes softer, and a soul that is pressed often becomes purer. Hardship has a way of stripping away arrogance, ego, and attachment to worldly illusions. It reminds the believer how temporary this world is and how much they need the one who controls it. Many people do not turn to Allah fully until something shakes their life. When everything is going smoothly, prayer becomes a routine, dua becomes rare, and remembrance becomes shallow. But the moment a person is struck with fear, loss, or pain, their heart cries out to the one who never left them. Some of the most sincere duas are whispered in tears, in the darkness of the night, or in moments when no one else can help. Without trials, many hearts would remain distant, distracted, and deceived by the illusion of control. Hardship pulls the veil away and reveals the reality that only Allah holds power over everything. When someone realizes this, their faith is no longer something they say. It becomes something they live. Tests also separate those who believe for convenience from those who believe with conviction. When life is easy, everyone claims faith, but when pressure is applied, the true believer remains steadfast. Allah says in the Quran that people will not be left to say, "We believe," without being tested. The test is not for Allah to see our faith. He already knows. It is for us to see it ourselves. It allows a person to witness how much or how little trust they place in their Creator. Some people break under hardship because they were attached to this world, but others rise because they were attached to Allah. Their pain becomes a passage, not a prison. Spiritual growth also comes from realizing that one does not control outcomes. When someone does everything in their power and still faces difficulty, they learn that success is not in their hands but in Allah's decree. That realization is liberating. It brings peace because a believer understands that their job is effort and Allah's job is result. Hardship teaches humility and reliance. It humbles the proud heart and lifts the sincere one. Even when a test brings someone to their knees, that position becomes the closest place to Allah in sadr. What feels like breaking is sometimes the beginning of building. Every challenge also carries lessons uniquely tailored to person experiencing it. For one, illness may teach gratitude for health. For another, financial struggles may teach contentment and generosity. For someone else, heartbreak may teach them to seek love from the one who never leaves. Each test is a mirror showing what needs to be healed, strengthened, or released. Without such mirrors, people remain unaware of their inner state. Allah, in His wisdom, gives the believer exactly the difficulty required for their growth. Even when they don't understand it in the moment, they often look back and realize that without that hardship, they would not have reached where they are. Over time, a believer who faces trials with patience develops a heart that is stronger and softer at the same time, stronger in its trust and softer in its humility. They begin to appreciate the sweetness of worship, the comfort of dua and the depth of reliance upon Allah. Their view of life shifts. They stop chasing perfection in the world and begin preparing for what is eternal. They stop measuring success by what they gain and start measuring it by how they respond. Their relationship with Allah becomes personal, not inherited, and their soul becomes rooted in conviction, not convenience. In the end, hardship is not a barrier to spiritual growth. It is the very soil in which it is planted. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without tears, there is no cleansing. Without loss, there is no appreciation. And without trials, there is no elevation. Those who understand this no longer ask, "Why am I tested?" but instead say, "How is Allah strengthening me through this?" Their faith becomes unshakable not because they avoided storms, but because they learn to anchor their hearts in the one who controls them. Patience and trust in Allah during hardship are among the most powerful acts of worship a believer can perform. When a person holds on to sabr in the face of pain, uncertainty, or loss, they are not just enduring the moment, they are engaging in a spiritual transaction with their Creator. Every second of patience is recorded, every silent tear is seen, and every difficulty endured with faith is compensated by Allah in ways a person cannot imagine. The Quran promises again and again that those who are patient will be rewarded without measure. Unlike other acts of worship that have a defined reward, patience is limitless in its return. It shows a deep understanding that Allah is in control, that He is wise in His decisions, and that relief is in His timing. Trusting Allah means believing that even when things look confusing, there is goodness hidden within the situation. It is easy to trust when life goes according to plan, but true tawakkul appears when every worldly support falls away. At that moment, a believer learns to rely on Allah not as a last option, but as the only one who truly remains. When someone raises their hands in dua during hardship, it is not a sign of weakness. It is a declaration of faith. It means they still believe that Allah can change everything with a single command, that He has not abandoned them, and that His delay is not His denial. Many people break not because the hardship is too heavy, but because they lose hope. The believer who keeps hope alive, even in the darkest moments, is promised a way out through doors they could never have expected. A common misconception is that patience means doing nothing. But in Islam, patience is not passive. It is active endurance. It means continuing to pray even when the heart is exhausted, continuing to work even when the results are unclear, and continuing to trust even when every emotion suggests giving up. It is not about pretending the pain is not real. It is about choosing faith despite the pain. Patience is not the absence of tears or fear. It is the refusal to let those feelings lead to despair or disobedience. When someone says Alhamdulillah in the middle of their difficulty, they are not denying their struggle. They are acknowledging that Allah is still worthy of praise, even when life feels heavy. Another aspect of patience is timing. Relief does not always come immediately, and part of faith is understanding that delay has purpose. There are blessings that require waiting. Sometimes Allah holds back a gift so that the believer grows into the person who will know how to handle it. Sometimes what we see as a setback is actually a shield protecting us from something harmful. What looks like a closed door may be a redirection towards something better. Even unanswered doors are not signs of rejection. They are answers in different forms. Allah might replace what we asked for with something better, delay it until a time when it will bring more benefit, or use it to erase sins and elevate status in the hereafter. Every outcome is part of a divine calculation that favors the believer. Gratitude is closely tied to patience. When a person can be grateful during ease and patient during hardship, they demonstrate the highest form of faith. Even in pain, there are blessings. A believer who reflects will notice that Allah never leaves them empty-handed. A hardship may come, but with it comes increased dua, deeper reflection, stronger character, and often a closeness to Allah that is never produced. There are people who only discovered their true strength after life tested them. There are others who only tasted the sweetness of worship when the world disappointed them. What felt like a breakdown was actually a breakthrough. What makes patience so powerful is that it aligns a believer's heart with the reality of this world. Life was never meant to be perfect here. The world is a place of tests, and Jannah is the place of rest. When someone expects ease from dunya, they will be disappointed. But when they understand that every hardship is a means to attain Allah's pleasure, they carry their struggles differently. They stop asking why me and start asking, what does Allah want me to learn or gain through this? This shift in mindset turns pain into purification and difficulty into elevation. The promise of reward is not limited to this world. Some hardships may never fully be resolved here, but nothing is lost with Allah. On the day of judgment, when people see the reward stored for every moment of patience, they will wish they had been tested more. Every sigh, every sacrifice, every silent moment of restraint will appear as mountains of reward. The Prophet Muhammad said that if the believer knew the reward Allah has prepared, they would not wish for their hardship to have been removed. In the end, patience and trust are not just responses to trials, they are pathways to nearness with Allah. They transform the heart, clean the soul, and build an inner strength that nothing in this world can break. When someone keeps their faith through difficulty, Allah honors them with something far greater than what they lost. Relief may come in this world or the next, but it always comes, and when it does, the believer realizes that every second of pain was leading them to a place of greater mercy, growth and reward. Tests have a way of revealing what words and appearances often hide. A person may seem strong, faithful and composed when life is easy, but the real state of the heart becomes visible the moment it is shaken. Hardship exposes what lies beneath the surface, whether a person's connection to Allah is genuine or only a claim. Many people assume they know themselves until a test arrives and reveals their reality. It is in moments of loss, fear, loneliness, and pain that a person discovers the sincerity of their belief. Someone may speak beautifully about trust, gratitude, and patience, but when a difficulty appears, their reaction shows whether those words were lived or merely spoken. In the Quran, Allah mentions that people will not be left to say, "We believe," without being tested. The test is not to inform Allah of our condition. He already knows every detail of our hearts. Rather, the test is for us to witness ourselves, to remove illusions, and to understand where we truly stand. Some people, when tested, turn away, complain, or blame others. Others, when tested, turn inward and seek Allah more sincerely than before. The difference lies not in the size of the hardship, but in the strength of the connection. Trials do not create weakness, they expose it. They do not create strength, they reveal it and then shape it further. Tests also uncover hidden attachments. A person may believe they are independent and devoted to Allah, but a trial reveals what they were truly depending on. If someone loses wealth and collapses emotionally, perhaps their heart was tied to money more than they realized. If the loss of a person destroys their inner peace, perhaps their reliance on creation was greater than their reliance on the Creator. Allah sometimes removes what we cling to so we can recognize what was holding our hearts captive. The test then becomes a mercy that redirects us toward what truly matters. Hardships also reveal humility or arrogance. Some respond to trials with anger, questioning why Allah would allow such things to happen to them, as if they were entitled to a life without difficulty. Others respond by lowering their head in submission, acknowledging that Allah is wise and that the unseen holds reasons the mind cannot yet comprehend. A trial becomes a mirror showing whether the heart is rebellious or surrendered. The arrogant heart crumbles under suffering, but the humble heart finds strength through it because it knows that nothing Allah decrees is without purpose. Tests also separate temporary believers from those anchored in conviction. When things are easy, many people claim faith. They speak of trust and reliance, they recite verses, they encourage others. But when life strikes, their reaction either validates or contradicts everything they said. Some abandon prayer when hardship arrives, thinking it useless. Others increase their prayer, knowing it is their lifeline. Some panic and blame fate, while others breathe deeply and whisper the name of the one who controls fate. Their response is a declaration of what lived in their heart all along. Even tears, fear, and sadness are not signs of weak faith if the heart remains connected to Allah. The prophets themselves cried, felt sorrow, and asked for relief. What distinguishes the believer is not that they do not feel, but that their feelings do not push them into despair or disbelief. They cry, but they still believe. They fear, but they still rely on Allah. They struggle, but they do not walk away. Hardship clarifies the heart by removing pretense and forcing sincerity to rise. Tests also bring out qualities a person may not know they possess. Someone might discover strength they never realized they had. Others may uncover a capacity for patience, gratitude, or reliance that awakens only under pressure. Hardship lights up parts of the soul that ease never touches. It pushes the believer to explore deeper forms of prayer, more heartfelt dua, and more meaningful reflection. It forces authenticity. In discomfort, people stop pretending and start confronting themselves. Furthermore, trials distinguish between worship done out of habit and worship done out of love. When life is good, people may pray simply because it is routine. But in hardship, the quality of sujood changes. The heart becomes present, the tongue speaks with sincerity, and the soul becomes desperate for nearness to Allah. Tests transform ordinary acts of worship into powerful moments of connection. They create sincerity that cannot be manufactured by comfort. Through difficulty, a believer witnesses their own growth. They look back at a past version of themselves and realize how much Allah has changed them. The test that once felt unbearable becomes the very thing that strengthened their relationship with Him. They begin to see that their pain did not come to break them, but to purify them. They understand that their reactions shaped their transformation. What they thought was the worst moment of their life may become the turning point that brought them closest to Allah. In the end, tests do not just expose the heart, they refine it. They strip away illusions and bring forth truth. A person may enter a trial unsure of their faith but emerge with clarity and conviction. They may begin by questioning why it happened and end by thanking Allah for how it changed them. Every hardship becomes either a doorway to growth or a missed opportunity. Those who surrender and trust discover parts of their faith they never knew existed. Those who resent and blame remain stuck in the same place. Trials reveal, shape, and elevate those who allow them to. They uncover the heart not to humiliate it, but to guide it back to the one who created it. Every test a believer faces is temporary, no matter how permanent it may feel in the moment. Human beings often look at their difficulties as if they will last forever. But Allah has promised that with every hardship comes ease, not after it. This means that the trial and the relief are linked, and one is never sent without the other. The pain may feel overwhelming, the wait may feel long, and the heart may grow tired. Yet the believer must remember that nothing in this world is constant, not happiness, not sadness, not fear, not comfort. Everything moves according to the timing of the one who created time itself. Just as night always gives way to dawn, hardship always gives way to relief. The certainty of this promise is what keeps a believer from falling into despair. Sometimes the relief comes in a way that is visible and immediate, like a problem being solved, a sickness being cured, or a difficulty being lifted. Other times, the relief comes in a different form, through inner peace, increased strength, or a deeper connection to Allah. Even if the situation does not change outwardly, the heart can be granted a tranquility that makes the burden lighter than before. This shows that the true ease is not always the removal of the test, but the support Allah places within the soul to endure it. The believer must understand that Allah does not delay relief without wisdom. What appears as waiting is actually preparation, growth, or protection from something unseen. People often think that their current struggle will define their entire life, but history shows otherwise. Every difficulty that once consumed a person eventually became a memory. The tears that once fell endlessly dried. The fear that once kept them awake eventually faded. Even the most painful heartbreaks softened with time, and the wounds that felt permanent gradually healed. Allah created the human heart with the ability to recover, and He created life with seasons that constantly change. The prominence we feel during hardship is an illusion created by emotion, not reality. When the believer remembers this, they gain patience because they know that no state lasts forever except the ones in the hereafter. Trials also come with an unseen expiration set by Allah. A test will not remain 1 second longer than it is meant to. When the appointed moment of relief arrives, nothing can delay it. And when the appointed moment of hardship arrives, nothing can stop it. This understanding frees the believer from overthinking and despair. Instead of asking, when will this end? They begin to ask, what is Allah preparing me for through this? The moment relief comes, it often makes the believer realize that the pain was part of a larger plan, one that could not have unfolded any other way. Hardship is often compared to clouds covering the sun. The sun never disappears. It is only hidden for a time. Eventually the clouds move and the light emerges again. In the same way, the mercy of Allah is always present, even when it feels obscured by trial. The believer's responsibility is to remain steadfast until the clouds pass. Sometimes Allah withholds something temporarily to grant something greater later. A delay is not a denial. A pause is not a punishment. What is written for a person will reach them when the moment is right. Relief may come in this world or in the next, but it always comes. For some, the dua they made for years may be answered in unexpected ways. For others, the reward for their patience may be stored for them in the hereafter, where no disappointment exists and no reward is ever lost. A believer understands that even if the outcome they hoped for does not appear, Allah will replace it with something far better in a time and place where loss does not exist. This conviction prevents despair and strengthens resilience. Tests also humble the heart and remind it of its dependence on Allah. When someone reaches the point of thinking they cannot continue, yet still manage to hold on, they witness firsthand that Allah is the one carrying them. When they feel relief after hardship, they see clearly that it was not their strength that sustained them, but Allah's mercy. This realization increases faith and gratitude, making the believer stronger than before the trial began. What once seemed unbearable becomes a source of reward and transformation. Hardship also teaches that life is not meant to be a place of endless comfort. The world is a stage of tests, while Jannah is the home of permanence. The believer who understands this does not panic when trials appear. They see them as part of the journey. They know that the pain is temporary, but the reward is eternal. They know that their endurance is not wasted and their patience is not forgotten. On the day of judgment, when they stand before Allah and see the mountains of reward accumulated from every moment of struggle, they will understand that the waiting was worth it. In the end, the believer finds peace in knowing that Allah has already written the end of every hardship. No tear is wasted, no prayer is ignored, and no patience goes unrewarded. The storm may shake the heart, but it will pass. The night may be long, but dawn will rise. The believer who holds on during the test will witness the mercy that follows in this life or the next, and when relief finally comes, they will understand why patience was asked of them.